What is the hardest level in Geometry Dash? That's a question people have been asking since the game's conception pretty much, and the subject of much debate over the years. In trying to answer this question, many people have made discussion threads on the forums and subreddit, people made countdown videos, but never could we fully agree on the outcome. That is, until the Demons List was launched, right? Well, you see, difficulty is largely subjective. The Demons List is often a topic of discussion because it's not hard to fathom that someone would disagree with a placement on the list. And you would never be able to come to a definite resolution because ultimately everybody has a different viewpoint on the subject. This means the Demons List is constantly put into the spotlight of discussion. Not to mention, C dedicates an entire section to it in every one of his G-News episodes. Clearly the Demons List is held in a very high regard by the community, as it is considered the official Demons List. But you have to remember, there's nothing official about the Demons List. Having a fancy website with a team of moderators doesn't make your list any more official than a list made by me, or anybody else for that matter. If it were truly an official list, it would have been endorsed and promoted by RobTop himself. I think this is something people often forget when looking at the Demons List. I won't knock the effort that goes into maintaining the list, of course, that is something to be respected, but in the end it all comes down to the unofficial opinions of the moderators, no matter how much they try to sell themselves as the official Demons List. To be honest, I think the Demons List has an overall negative impact on the community. If you've seen my video ranking the top 50 extreme demons on the list by their design, you'll know that I think that most extreme demons don't look very good. Hard and insane demons tend to be much more visually appealing and creative as well, and I think the list is partly to blame in that trend. If you make a level that ends up on the list, not only will you get free advertising space on their website, but you will also guarantee that C will mention you in the next G-News episode, no matter how bad the level actually is. This also ties into the whole trend of overhyping the fuck out of extreme demons to the point where actual movie trailers are being used to generate hype for these legendary divine demons that can only be slain by godlike players. Anyway, because of this, making a good level is not incentivized, so only a small minority of creators go out of their way to actually create the best they possibly can. It just has to be barely good enough to get rated so it can get on the list. And that's exactly what we're seeing in my opinion. If it weren't for the difficulty, most of the list demons would never have gotten popular. There are some great extreme demons of course, but the bad definitely outweigh the good by a long shot.
Yeah, but the point of the Demons List is to document the hardest levels, not the best.
Of course, and I'm well aware of that fact. That raises a question though. If the list is meant to document the hardest levels in the game, why is one of the stipulations for a level to be added to the list that it has to be rated by RobTop? Levels like Necropolis and Hyperparacosm have no chance of ever getting on the list simply because they won't ever get rated, and I fail to see why. RobTop isn't very reliable when it comes to rating levels, as he tends to pander to the casual player. So this seems like a very backwards way of doing it. I asked the Demons List team about this on Twitter, and Localizer responded by saying it would be too much work to also document unrated levels, and I have to say that's a pretty lame excuse. It makes it seem like the sole reason this rule is in place is so the list moderators have to do less work, which needless to say is pretty lazy. Another thing people were eager to point out when I suggested this is that it would open the door for a lot of shitty levels to get on the Demons List. However, didn't we just determine that the point of the Demons List is to document the hardest levels and not the best? I don't see why a quality filter should be applied to it. The Demons List already does a bad job representing creators' skill and creativity in our community, so it really makes no difference. If you only want good levels to show up on the list, you should have made it about the best levels in Geometry Dash and not the hardest. You can't have it both ways, because that just makes the list inaccurate in both aspects. The Demons List takes a very central position in our community, as it acts like a leaderboard for all the top players, and gives them a score based on how many levels they've completed. It's a much more accurate way to measure players' skill than the in-game leaderboards, which just keep track of your star count. So it's often used as a point of reference. That's why it's essential that the Demons List is reliable and trustworthy, but I'm not so sure that it is. You know, every couple months a new hacking scandal seems to surface in the community, and usually the list moderators handle it pretty well. But I think the situation with End Level recently was handled extremely poorly and highlighted some problems in the list's management. To recap the situation real quick, what happened was that End Level was caught hacking and subsequently banned from the Demons List. The evidence they had was this pastebin End Level made with male Veronica, which describes how to fabricate a video without getting caught. And I'm guessing he couldn't prove his legitimacy when he was confronted about it, so he was banned. The list moderators didn't want to make that information public though, since it could spawn a new wave of cheaters on the demons list. This left the community dissatisfied, which caused a backlash demanding End Level to be unbanned due to lack of evidence, which makes sense from their perspective. To them it seemed like End Level was banned for no reason after all. Now, the next thing that happens is something I really have a problem with, and it baffles me that nobody has spoken up about this. Anyway, so with the community pressuring them, the list mods decided that the best course of action would be to comply with the demands of the community and unban End Level.
So since we couldn't show valid proof without the paste bin, we unbanned End Level due to pressure from the community.
Yes, that's right. The moderators unbanned him, knowing that he was a cheater, and while also having proof against him. And yet they still unbanned him just to avoid backlash. This completely destroys any credibility the Demons List has, since it shows that as soon as the situation turns against their favor, they will turn a blind eye to cheaters, even high profile ones like End Level, which undermines the reliability of the entire list. Yes, they did ban him again later, but that was only because they found a new way to expose him. If they hadn't found that, they may never have banned him again, and they still would knowingly have hidden a cheater on the list. Now, you might say that they had no choice but to keep it a secret, since if the info got out, it would just cause more people to get hacked records on the list. Well, that's assuming that there was only two options they could have chosen here, but that's not the case at all. They could have released the information, banned End Level, and still have prevented people from using it to cheat their way onto the list. You see, cheating in Geometry Dash has evolved a lot over the years, with better and better techniques that keep getting harder to spot. End Level's method of cheating has been going around the community. I managed to get my hands on a link too, and it's safe to say people are going to use it since it's near undetectable. The only method they have to detect this is closely comparing the pulsing of the orbs of two legitimate runs with different graphics cards with the one you want to check. Now, this method seems unreliable to me, as you usually don't know who has which graphics card, and even when you manage to catch inconsistencies, you still don't know which one is the cheater in that situation. Not to mention that there may not always be two different runs available. It's not a stretch to imagine that a sizable amount of cheated records have already managed to find their way onto the Demons List with End Level's method after it went public, since it's so hard to catch. Cheaters will always try to find a way to game the system if you let them, and in the future there might be a cheating method that has consistent orb pulses, making it even harder to detect. That's why the list moderators should have considered another option with the End Level situation, which is to increase the requirements for a record to be added to the list. If they did that, they could have released the information, banned End Level, and prevented other cheaters from using it. So what does increasing the requirements mean exactly? Well, it basically comes down to having the player perform an action only a legitimate player could do. One example is to include clicks in the video. Another is to screen share some attempts with the moderators to verify the player actually has skill. There's a number of different things they could do, but the bottom line is that they have to take action if they want to be one step ahead of the cheaters, because right now it's the other way around. A video is very easy to fabricate at this point, and cheaters will only try to cover their tracks more and more thoroughly in the future. The list mods are making it needlessly difficult for themselves to catch them, which just opens the door for mistakes to be made, resulting in people slipping through the system. Now, to end with a little disclaimer, since I've been pretty critical towards the Demons List, I don't hate the list mods or anything, and the purpose of this video is not to shit on them. I made this video to make people think about the Demons List a bit more critically, since the community normally endlessly defends them, no matter what strange decisions they may make. I'll be interested in what you guys have to say about this though, so be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in a comment down below.